It's a rare privilege, a chance to see the Louvre's treasures while the museum's closed to the public. And among the Leonardo da Vinci canvases on this gallery wall, La Belle Ferronnière, also known as Portrait of an Unknown Lady. She's about to embark on an important journey. She's going to Abu Dhabi, and so am I. Her new home is here in the Louvre Abu Dhabi. We're here for the opening of the Louvre's newest outpost, 5,000 kilometres from the French capital here on Saadiyat Island, Abu Dhabi. This museum has been 10 years in the making. It's a hugely ambitious undertaking. Let's have a look back at how the project took shape. One museum, 4 presidents, all of whom backed the construction of the Louvre in Abu Dhabi. The proposal for the cultural project came from the United Arab Emirates, eager to diversify its oil-dependent economy. In France, the head of state was enthusiastic.
President Chirac was very proud of this project, and not just because of the revenue it generated. The project was perfectly aligned with his philosophy that France's foreign policy and cultural policy should go hand in hand.
A historic deal was signed on March 6, 2007. The museum can call itself the Louvre for 30 years. A total of 13 French museums, including the Orsay and the Guimet, have agreed to loan, or rather rent, their artwork for a period up to 10 years. The deal earmarked €1 billion for training, expertise, acquisition advice, and temporary exhibits. Some critics say the project is more about money than art.
We should loan our artwork the way all other museums do, normally 3 to 4 months. We shouldn't loan or rent our art. Museums shouldn't be able to acquire a Leonardo da Vinci on loan for a whole year just because they wrote a big check for it.
So how did they assemble a collection in such a short time? An agency was created, France Museum. Laurence Descartes, a current director of the Orsay Museum, was chosen to oversee acquisitions for the Louvre Abu Dhabi.
The Louvre Abu Dhabi's acquisitions process began in early 2009. The first purchases came during the sale of Yves Saint Laurent's and Pierre Berger's collections. This is how we acquired one of Saint Laurent's 3 Mondrians for the Louvre Abu Dhabi.
Star architect Jean Nouvel was chosen to spearhead the project on the ground. He didn't want to simply copy the Paris Louvre, instead imagining an all-white jewelry box inspired by the Medina, the traditional walled Arab cities of North Africa.
The space itself is created on a desert island with nothing else but sand, water and sky. With these materials, we hope the structure will simultaneously convey the spirit of Arab civilization and human universality.
The construction cost some €582 million. 5,000 workers have labored on the site day and night for around €240 a month. Those who went on strike to protest against working conditions were sent back to their home countries, as striking is illegal in the United Arab Emirates. Construction came to a halt in 2011 following the financial crisis, but took off again in 2013. An immense undertaking, France's largest cultural project abroad, has finally been completed after years of delays. The roof is actually a dome made up of thousands of stars, which creates an amazing effect in terms of light. Jean Nouvel, thank you so much for joining us. You're the architect behind this building. You designed an ensemble of galleries. We're in a very specific site here on Saadiyat Island. How did that influence your design?
The building is an expression of my convictions. I care a lot about the context of my architecture. For me, it was out of the question that a museum this important wouldn't belong to the culture of the place it's in. So it's an Arabic museum, and it speaks to the people who live here. It's about what it means to be Arab. It's about Arab cities. There were 2 symbolic elements I really wanted to emphasize. One was this idea of community. the ancient Greek idea that a museum should be a place that welcomes people. I wanted to create an Arab agora, a meeting place. The museum needed to show that, even from the outside. Now, the other important element was spirituality. The collections housed here are collections inspired by all sorts of different belief systems, a range of very profound and often mysterious subjects. I think that spiritual dimension is well represented. It's well embodied by the dome. With this project, I really wanted the dome to be part of a specifically Arab architectural tradition, so I integrated latticework, a series of perforations, into a structure. The effect is an interplay between geometry and light, something which, for me, has always characterized great Arab architecture. But I was also looking for a certain specificity, because I believe in creating unique buildings. I began to see the kinetic possibilities of the light. I realized that with the movement of the sun, the effect of the building could be very different over the course of the day.
A museum of this scope and ambition is not without its constraints, its challenges. What were the largest challenges for you?
It was an architectural challenge as much as it was a technical challenge. That's how you have to understand this project. The idea was to make the dome out of a number of different layers. Each of the 8 layers has certain motives, cut out, which are drawn from Arab culture. Motives which we created and replicated with the help of a computer program. When a ray of sun reaches the ground, the building, or the water, it needs to pass through those 8 separate obstacles. 8 different layers which, when seen all together, really become their own entity. Technically, it's not more difficult than any other technique. What was a challenge was coming up with a dome that would work in the urban environment, and to make sure that it could measure 180 meters in diameter without becoming too heavy. It needed to appear effortless. You can't see the 4 points where the dome is connected to the rest of the building. That's a secret.
The creation of this museum in the place that it is, at the crossroads between Asia, the Middle East, Africa, is quite specific and different to Europe. Can you tell us about what role it will play in the region?
I do think that a museum like this is extremely important given the situation in which we currently find ourselves. As far as extremist ideologies and intolerance are concerned, I think it's important to be able to look at what's happening in other cultures, what different people have done through the ages. It's important to realize that there is never only one truth.
The Louvre Abu Dhabi has been designed as a universal museum, highlighting what world cultures have in common with each other. Here, art and artefacts from different regions of the world are exhibited side by side. It's a new approach and a chronological experience that aims to bridge the gap between East and West.
From the local to the global, it's a universal approach from the get-go. Visitors to the Louvre Abu Dhabi enter the galleries with a map of the Emirates at their feet, before they're taken on a historical voyage through different civilizations via treasures from around the world.
The idea behind this universal attitude is first and foremost about removing partitions. In museums, as you'll have seen, you normally have the Greeks on one side, Romans on the other, then Egyptians, painting, sculpture, all separately. The idea here is that once we've broken down these barriers, then the pieces begin to tell a different story. In this context, there's a formal and visual link between them. So at the Louvre Abu Dhabi, it's about putting these objects in a certain relationship with one another. The visitor looks at the work, and the pieces of work look at each other.
The museum's organized thematically and chronologically. with a series of galleries showing artifacts from prehistoric times to the present day, ancient relics, art from India, China, Ghana and Egypt. There are some 600 pieces in total, half of them on loan from 13 French museums.
Art occupies a very important place in the United Arab Emirates. And personally, I think that's linked to the fact that there are many different nationalities here. And each nationality brings with them some of their history, some of their culture. So the country's history and culture is a shared one. And this museum has been born of that context.
And as well as presenting the past from a new perspective, the museum's firmly rooted in the present.
Here in the Emirates, an absolute monarchy sets the tone, and Islam is the official religion. So how does that affect an institution like the Louvre and its collection? We take a look at some of the artworks that have made the shortlist and a couple that haven't.
Between acquisitions and loans, the Louvre Abu Dhabi's collection has finally emerged from the sands. But just what is on show at this new museum? Here's a flash recap of what's in and what's out. Nudity. In theory, there'll be no nude female sculptures. Even so, Edgar Degas' Two Dancers and this Venus will be allowed in the permanent collection. There's no shying away from religious artifacts, though. Pages from the Blue Quran, a Gothic-era Bible, and a Torah will be presented side by side.
Regions, cultures are mixing, interconnecting into one another. And I think it's a symbol. Abu Dhabi is, of course, well aware of what's going on with the Islamic State group and terrorism. So their political intention is to develop ties between cultures, civilizations, and religions.
As for one of the world's most famous works of art, there's one lady who'll not be leaving her home in Paris. The Mona Lisa is going nowhere. Leonardo da Vinci's La Belle Ferronnière has made the trip, though, and is bringing her mysterious gaze to Abu Dhabi. She's joined by Van Gogh's self-portrait, Manet's Pfeiffer, and the Apollo Belvedere. In more contemporary concerns, the Louvre has commissioned site-specific installations from American artist Jenny Holzer and Italian sculptor Giuseppe Pinone. More than enough to entice future visitors. The Louvre Abu Dhabi is hoping to rally crowds to match the 8 million who visit the Louvre Paris every year.
In creating this cultural district on Saadiyat Island, which should feature a number of museums and galleries, Abu Dhabi is investing in a future that puts arts, education and tourism centre stage in its economy. And when it comes to promoting cultural heritage and inspiring future generations of artists, historically, there's no better model than the Louvre.